At God's command, Moses and his brother Aaron were to meet with Pharaoh once again and utter the famous words, Shalach et ami, let my people go. God had told them,
Pharaoh will say to you, show me a miracle. When he does, tell Aaron to take his rod and throw it on the ground before Pharaoh. The rod will turn into a snake.
Once they arrived, everything happened just as the Lord had told them.
Show me a miracle.
Aaron, take your rod and throw it down before Pharaoh.
Aaron threw his rod on the ground and it turned into a snake. Pharaoh called his sorcerers, who did the same with their magic arts. They threw their rods on the ground and they also turned into snakes. However, Aaron's rod swallowed theirs. However, Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. He continued to refuse to listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. From there, one of the most amazing spiritual wars in the Bible began. Sabbath School Light presents the series, Exodus, Journey to the Promised Land. Lesson 4, The Plagues. Have you ever seen an optical illusion that looks like one thing at first, but when you look closely, it's something else entirely?
Yes, like the one that looks like a young woman, but then she looks like an old woman.
No! First she looks like an old woman, and then she looks like a young woman.
This drawing was made in 1915 by the English artist William Ely Hill and is titled, My Wife and My Mother-in-Law. A group of researchers from Flinders University in Australia conducted a study based on this image. They showed it to 393 people, men and women of different ages, for less than a second, and found that older people tend to see the older woman first, while younger people tend to see the younger woman first. Curious, isn't it? When reading the account of the plagues, many see a punishing God who unjustly hardens Pharaoh's heart. However, when we take a closer look, we discover that the story reveals the image of a God of love. So, this week's question is, what can we learn from the story of the plagues when we take a deeper look? First, what was God fighting against? Imagine a child who gets seriously ill from time to time.
Maybe he has an allergy.
Or maybe there's something in the environment.
The father investigates and discovers that the cause is invisible but dangerous, toxic mold in the walls. So, he starts an all-out war against the mold. He knocks down walls, changes ceilings, cleans every nook and cranny. The neighbor thinks the man has an exaggerated fight against the walls. But what is his real fight? It's against his son's sickness. Can you see it? That's what happens in the story of the plagues. In Exodus 12:12, God says he would execute his sentence against all the gods of Egypt. The Egyptians worshipped over 1,500 gods, and Pharaoh was one of them. But the Lord does not say he would fight against the Egyptians or Pharaoh, but against their gods. Could God really fight against those gods? No. Those gods were like the walls of that father. They do not see, they do not hear, they do not fight. God's battle was against the toxic mold of idolatry and sorcery that abounded in Egypt and contaminated the children of God. Do you know why before the plagues God turned Aaron's rod into a serpent? Do you know why he allowed the wizard's rods to also become serpents and then Aaron's rod to swallow them? Listen well, for the Egyptians, the goddess Wadjet was represented as a sacred cobra. They believed that she gave power to the Pharaoh, that she protected him and would even guide him to the afterlife. That's why the symbol of the cobra was on the Pharaoh's crown as a sign of authority, royalty, and even divinity. But when Aaron's rod became a serpent and then swallowed the rods of the Egyptian magicians, God was sending a powerful message. The true power is not in your gods, nor in your magic, nor in your Pharaoh. The true power is in me. The plagues would not be just supernatural acts. God wanted to eradicate the toxic mold of idolatry, and as a loving father, was willing to tear down whatever it took to save his children. Second, the real reason for every plague. Have you ever seen surgery?
No, how shocking!
I have, and I even fainted.
Well, when you see one without understanding what it is about, it looks like a scene full of pain, blood, and suffering. But when you understand that the surgeon is removing a tumor, repairing an organ, or saving a life, it all makes sense. In the same way, we should look at the story of the plagues. Now that we know that God, the divine surgeon, truly wants to remove the cancer of idolatry before it spreads throughout His people, we can better understand the real purpose behind each plague. Let's take a look at the first 9, and we'll leave the last one for the next lesson. First plague: the waters of the Nile turned to blood. Life in Egypt depended on the river's water, so they invented a god, Hapi, the god of the Nile. With this plague, God showed that Hapi was not able to give or protect life. Second plague: frogs covered all of Egypt. The Lord now confronted Heket, the frog goddess. Since they despised the frogs, Pharaoh asked Moses to pray to God, and God removed them. But Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. Third plague: insects. Although some translations say lice, the most likely translation of the Hebrew word kinim is mosquitoes. In any case, the plague was aimed at Geb, the Egyptian god of the earth, because God brought the insects from the dust of the ground, and they filled the land. Unable to replicate the miracle, the magician said, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh would not give in. Fourth plague: flies. The god Khepri was represented with the head of a fly. Now God filled the land with flies. While the Egyptians suffered, the Hebrews were safe. Fifth plague: all the livestock of Egypt died. The bull god Apis and the goddess Hathor, who was depicted with a cow's head, were the next deities to fall. Not a single animal from the Israelites' herds died. Sixth plague: boils on people and animals. A complete defeat of Isis and Imhotep, gods of medicine and healing, who were unable to protect their worshippers. Not even the magicians could escape this plague. Seventh plague: hail. Nut was the Egyptian goddess of the sky, but she could do nothing to stop the violent hail and lightning that left Egypt in ruins. Eighth plague: locusts. Ses, one of the gods of agriculture, also failed to stop the voracious locusts that devoured what little had been left by the hail. Ninth plague: a thick darkness covered all the land of Egypt for 3 days. People could not even see each other. But when the Israelites lived, there was still light. Thus Ra, the sun god and chief of the Egyptian deities, was defeated. Do you see it now? Each plague was surgery against idolatry. And yes, surgeries are painful, but if their purpose is to heal, then they are worth it. And third, who hardened Pharaoh's heart? Okay, this question has been circling in the minds of many Christians for centuries. But notice, in the first 5 plagues, Pharaoh is said to be solely responsible for the hardening of his own heart. And in the last 5 plagues, it says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. What does this mean?
That he initiated the hardening of his own heart.
Correct. Starting from the 6th plague, God's actions meant to bring hope to His people became the catalyst that finished hardening a heart that was already hardened. What happens when the sun shines on butter?
It melts, obviously.
And if it shines on wet clay?
It hardens.
Exactly. The same sun melts some and hardens others. It's not the sun's fault, but the nature of the material. The same thing happens with the human heart before the Word of God. Some melt in humility, others harden in pride. But it's not God who makes the decision for us. It's the heart that reveals what it's made of. Therefore, if there's one clear thing about Pharaoh's heart, it's this: what does not surrender in humility will inevitably harden. Today, we've trained our eyes to take a deeper look at the story of the plagues and see a God who was fighting against the invisible cancer of idolatry, that each plague was like a surgery meant to save lives, and that Pharaoh's heart didn't harden by divine decree, but by human pride. And what about our own heart? Will it melt like butter or harden like clay under God's sun? Because the story of the plagues isn't just history, it's a warning, it's hope, it's a call. God is still fighting for us, still removing idols, still calling us to surrender. Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts. Has this study blessed you? You can also be part of this mission to teach the Bible in a creative and transformative way. Scan the QR code on the screen and support us so that more people can learn how to study the Exodus, Journey to the Promised Land. Remember, together we can grow more.